What up? What up? What up? Good afternoon, morning. What time is it? I think it's morning. Technically, still. I think it qualifies. Still the morning. Anyhow, you know, it is what it is. Member chats, super chats go first. Let me know, guys, when you want to do the next member stream because I want to do it monthly to reward the members of the channel here. We had fun last month doing it, or it might have been earlier this month. I don't even remember, but we'll do one before August gets out. I feel like Fridays are good days for that. So let me know if you, we could do it tomorrow if you want, or we could do it next week, the 22nd, whichever day, the 29th, the day before my birthday, or any other day in the middle of the week, but whenever works for everybody. Anyhow, let's get to the topics of today. I want to first look at the standings in the WNBA, which is kind of crazy. Makes the rest of the season very interesting before we get into some more evergreen debate stuff. But you look at the standings. Let me pull them up for a second. You can see just how bunched things are. This is on ESPN's page, but the Lynx are ahead of everybody else, right? Like nobody's catching Minnesota, obviously. Atlanta, that's a hell of a year that the Atlanta Dream have had. 6 games back of the Lynx, though, but they've passed the Liberty, who are in third. So if things were to hold right now, the Fever would play the Liberty in the first round. But if you look at the Fever and where they're at in the playoffs at 6th, they're only a half game up on Golden State, who's in 7. They're only 2 games up on the Storm, who are in a bit of a free fall, but are in 8. And they're only 2.5 up on the Sparks, who are in 12, or in 9th, I'm sorry, 12 games back. So the Fever could theoretically fall all the way out of the playoffs. That's not out of the realm of possibilities, which would be, disastrous, obviously. But they could also easily rise up to where Phoenix is, just 2 games behind Phoenix, or even where the Liberty and Dream are, just 3 games back of those teams. So the variance goes basically from 2 to, let's say, 9 or 10 for the Indiana Fever. Same goes for the Las Vegas Aces, who just played and won against the Liberty last night. I don't think, the Aces are playing better. They've won 5 games in a row, obviously. Their win over the Liberty is a schedule kind of win to me. I mean, the Liberty played the night before, traveled, and all that sort of stuff. It's, back-to-back. It's kind of a bit of a schedule loss. But you look at the upcoming schedule. For some reason, there's no games tonight. You go to Friday, the Fever have the Mystics. That's a game Indiana's 8.5-point favorites, and they should win that game. They need to win that game. They got the Mystics and the Sun before you're in the Caitlin Clark return range, which is those Minnesota Lynx games. Not to say she's coming back for those Minnesota Lynx games, but you're right in that range, the Lynx games into the Storm. And obviously the Lynx are really good. So let's just say Caitlin doesn't come back until that Storm game on the 26th. Good chance you lose both games to the Lynx. So in order to stay in the same position, got to beat the Mystics and the Sun. The Valkyries have the Sky, which is not a bad matchup for them or anyone. The Sparks have the Wings, obviously a very winnable game for them if they're going to rise up the standings. Now, the Storm have the Dream again, so the Storm could continue to fall. And then the Aces have the Mercury, so Mercury be favored there. So a lot could be shaken up just tomorrow in the standings. So it makes it very interesting the rest of the season, how it could shake out and how it could go down and how it is going to eventually work out. And the Fever have so much variance in where they could fall. I mean, their season could be looked at as this, like, just wasn't meant to be year, or they could still rise from the ashes like a phoenix for victory. I mean, those things are all on the table right now. All on the table right now. As Stern, a.k.a. Chris, weighs in. Good to see the Sky and the Sun have a clean game. Yeah, no shenanigans in that one at all. 3 ejections in that game. 3 ejections. And Ariel Atkins was standing on business. Lots going on in that situation. So there you have it when you look at it. And you can send me your thoughts and reactions to all that. It's not really all that deep, But it's interesting. It's interesting to see. Now, there was another thing I wasn't really thinking about today, to be honest with you, until I saw it going around the timeline again. And that was Caitlin Clark and Paige Bueckers and the debate that goes on there. And I saw my guy Jay Shifty put out a post basically saying that it was close, Clark and Bueckers. He says there are reasonable reasons to think Caitlin Clark is better than Paige, just as there are reasons to think Paige is better. That was his post. I sent him a link to the show. I don't know if he's busy or not, but I wouldn't mind having the debate with somebody. But it just, brought it up to my attention. And these things are evergreen. You can spin these things any way you want. Oh, by the way, before we go to Paige, breaking news. Live here. The Fever just signed a hardship player. Hold on one second. So let me spin to that real quick. Before we get back to I'll get back to the Paige and Caitlin thing, but this is happening live as we speak. So Kyra Lambert has signed a 7-day hardship contract with the Indiana Fever. She played at Duke and Texas. I'm not familiar, to be honest. A 7-day contract. I don't think she's played in the WNBA. I don't think she's played in the WNBA at all. So Kyra Lambert played at Duke, Texas. Last thing I see on her college stats is at Texas, 7 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists. Let me see if I can find anything else on Kyra Lambert. This is the Fever's press release. Right here. The Indiana Fever have signed guard Kyra Lambert to a 7-day contract, the team announced. The Fever qualify for the roster spot due to the injuries to Sydney Colson and Ari McDonald. Lambert has spent the entirety of her professional career playing in Europe, most recently with Olympiacos, where she won the Greek A1 League. During that season, Lambert averaged 15.4 points per game while shooting 42.1% from beyond the arc to go along with 6.3 assists. She went on to be named Eurocup's Guard of the Year. Interesting. Prior to her time in Greece, Lambert also spent time in France, Latvia, New Zealand, Slovakia, and Turkey. Before going professional, Lambert spent her collegiate years between Duke University and the University of Texas. So my understanding of this is if you go back and look at the hardship rules, the way that this is going to work out now is that basically it's probably going to be Kyra Lambert and Odyssey Sims fighting for a roster spot, because Odyssey Sims was brought in on the hardship deal, and that means the only one of them can stay according to the rules. Sorry, I'm dealing with that lie. But only one of them can stay according to the rules. That was from Chloe Peterson. Let me give her credit. Of course, covering the Fever for the Indy Star, but she had written this. The Fever technically have room for up to 2 hardship players. If Sims is the only one signed, they don't need to release her once CC returns. If the Fever decide to sign another hardship player, they would need to release either Sims or the second hardship player once CC returns. So the way I read that, obviously, is that Sims and now Lambert battling for one spot the rest of the year. Odyssey Sims did not play well in her Fever debut. So this puts some pressure on her for her roster spot. They could also release theoretically Aerie and or Sydney Colson. I don't think they're going to do that, guys, because for team morale, it's not necessary. It doesn't help. This is a team that has come together through a lot of adversity. And on top of that, they also can keep one of these players. And they've played the majority of the season with 11. So this is an interesting maneuver. It's also for those who said they wanted to see the Fever scout internationally. That's, important. You know, yeah, that's them scouting internationally. Interesting. Interesting move. Playing here, I would, if you're asking for my snap judgment on a move like this, is I see some people in the chat. I see this more about Odyssey Sims than Caitlin Clark returning. That they gotta find the best fit for the team going forward the rest of the year. It is my understanding. I mean, it was said on the broadcast that they are hoping, unless something has changed between now and 2 days ago, that Caitlin is expected to return to practice next week. So that would be to ramp her up for the 22nd, 24th, 26th, in that kind of range. There's still 2 games before then, possibly 4 games. Let's say she comes back on the 26th. That is 4 games before, you might as well, you have a spot, get to 11, and you might as well see who fits better with the team for the run here, the long run here. So to me, this is Odyssey Sims versus Kyra Lambert is the way I see it. So got a new member in Unaided Foot. Member chats, super chats go first. I said we'll do a members only event coming up soon here. Boom. Where was so Joe Lala says, I don't want to miss the next member chat. So let's do it with plenty of notice. So let me know, guys. Give me the dates. I'll work around y'all's schedule too. Y'all. There's the. So you have that. Tay Boogie says 3 ejections was an overreaction for the Sky and Sun. You know what? It's funny. Just the thing about it is that it doesn't jive with the standards that they've set. That's what's always curious to me, is that when you look at it, the Marina Mabry's not thrown out of the game for what happened to Caitlin Clark. Why are they thrown out of the game yesterday? Everybody thrown out of the game yesterday. That's what I scratch my head about. Like, I don't mind them actually being a little heavy-handed because the WNBA stuff does get out of control a little bit. And it's the ref's job to enforce the rules and try to make sure that these things don't become habitual. But it's kind of, strange when in one hand you can't get ejected for something and then all of a sudden you get ejected. Everybody gets ejected. Savage Coffee Tea, interesting. Possibly they're not too excited with Sims. I mean, it's tough to be excited with Sims after the last game. Got to give her some grace. Ben Lamprick says this fits the CC timeline. Have her here the next week while CC starts practicing next week. Probably here for the next 2 games. Yeah, I mean, again, I think it seems like a competition to me between Odyssey Sims and Kyra Lambert. But if you have the ability to bring in another player, there's no downside to bringing in another player. Chris Ward says it's a baby step scouting internationally, and definitely Odyssey versus Kyra. Aerie set the standard. Yeah. Aerie, not only did Aerie fill in what was needed for Caitlin's absence, right? They needed somebody to play that spot regardless, whether Caitlin was healthy or out of the lineup. So I think that's that was the real blow. That was the real blow. And they're trying to replace Aerie McDonald now. Unaided Foot said Aerie is the funniest thing to happen this season with all the crazy surprises. Sorry, guys. Just coordinating a few things. All right. Full focus back. But yeah, I mean, that's an interesting signing for the Fever. It makes sense though. I mean, wait, look, I can't tell you I have any thoughts on the signing at all. I've never heard of Kyra Lambert until just now. But as far as the whys, I mean, it makes sense that they would use the hardship that they have and available to bring in another player, even to get them to 11 now. And it makes sense that you would do your due diligence to see who's the best fit for the team going forward. 7-day contract. Never been in the WNBA. So, interesting. Anybody can give me your member chats, super chats on that. I'll continue to discuss throughout the show. Obviously, that hit me live. Did my best to react to it in real time. But we can continue to react to it as the show goes along. I saw somebody ask about the Red Hot Atlanta Dream. I mean, look, that was one of the things I was going to talk about was Coach of the Year. That was on my initial rundown. You know, some of this is being changed a little bit given what happened there. But real quick on WNBA Coach of the Year, I would probably give it to Carl Smesko. I really like the way he's coached that team. I really like the style that they play. To be honest, I was surprised, and I am surprised how well the Brittany Griner and Brianna Jones tandem has worked, or at least hasn't been, it hasn't fallen apart. They've got some really good players there. Ryan Howard is super talented. She has the ability. I think she scored 9 points in 30 seconds last night. She has the ability to be maybe the best wing kind of player, shooting guard wing kind of player in the WNBA if she consistently played at her top level. Alicia Gray is a hell of a player. I mean, that's a good squad, but Carl Smesko has done a really nice job. So if I'm looking at WNBA Coach of the Year, I have it between 4. I know this one will be controversial, but I think Stephanie White belongs in the conversation. I'm sorry, I don't care what none of y'all say. Given what's happened to the Fever and given that she's kept them alive throughout this process. So Stephanie White, I would have in the mix. 2, I would have Cheryl Reeve. The Minnesota Lynx are far and away the class of the WNBA this year. 3, Natalie Nakase, for getting as much out of the Golden State Valkyries as she had so far this season. And lastly, Carl Smesko, who I would give the award to. And I don't know what everybody's problem is with Stephanie White. Like, I cannot for the life of me, I don't understand what people, their big beef and issue is. If you had told me before the season that Caitlin Clark would miss well over half the season, that the Fever would have to sign a bunch of hardship players, that DeWanna Bonner would leave the team after however many games it was, a week, essentially, and they would still be over 500 and in playoff position, I would have said that's a smashing success. The team is together. They play for one another. They've been 500 in Clark's absence over 20 games. Again, that's with Bonner leaving in the middle of the season, picking up hardship players, running them in and out of the lineup. Sophie Cunningham injured at the beginning of the year. I think Stephanie White belongs in the conversation. I do. People and this is exactly right. You got to find somebody to blame. Nobody who says the Stephanie White stuff ever brings a counter. They just say I'm an idiot. I mean, when's the last time Caitlin Clark played? What are we even talking about? Big picture, she's done a hell of a job. I'd give it to Smesko, but I'd have Stephanie White in the top 4 100%. 100%. All right, that's the Coach of the Year. Sorry, I bumped myself. And I'm not dealing with the CC Stephanie White conspiracies either. Okay, starting CC with Aerie was one of the dumbest coaching decisions I've ever seen. That was one game. It was one game. So what? It didn't work. She didn't go back to it. Like, that's it. It's go. I understand what she was trying to see there. She was looking at something. Sometimes you have to experiment in a season. Like, one bad decision, even if you call it a bad decision, I call that more experimenting. But even if you call it a dumb decision, doesn't erase the entire season. Totally agree. Stephanie White has done a good job. Injuries have destroyed Caitlin Clark. This is ridiculous. Stop it. Like, look, I'm not saying that Caitlin and Stephanie White have seen eye to eye completely on everything, or that there haven't been some philosophical differences, or that there won't be some philosophical differences, and that they won't butt heads at all. But this idea that they're pitted against one another and are detrimental to one another, or more so, it seems like that White is detrimental to CC is absolutely ridiculous. Like, Not everybody has to praise the ground Caitlin Clark walks on at all times, or put her in front at all times and throw rainbows and fuzzy puppies up into the air at all times. Like, enough. Like, I see these things online where they would post a picture and Caitlin Clark's on it. Where's Caitlin Clark? Shut up. And I say that as the Caitlin Clark guy. White has been a good coach 95%, but definitely has made some questionable experiments. See you. Yeah, I mean, that's all I got on that. We can discuss it again. All that's up for discussion. Thank you, Susan. She did not try making CC the fourth option on offense. That's just not. Yes, I did a long piece on Indiana Fever on SI. There's a new one from today in the link in the description. But I did a long piece about where Caitlin Clark and Stephanie White might clash based on their comments, based on sitting in the press room myself and hearing them say different things to a certain extent. That, again, doesn't mean the sky has collapsed and they can never be salvaged and their relationship is destroyed, or that Stephanie White is detrimental to Caitlin Clark's career, or any of those things. Like, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to say. Carol says when she was under Booter, she played off the ball. Go watch the Iowa games. And like, why are people so hell-bent on just, Stephanie White being the devil? She's not trying to make Caitlin the fourth or fifth option. She's trying to make everybody on the court a live option, so that you're not just playing Caitlin ball all the time. Now, the last thing I did say, the CC Paige thing, I did want to touch on since I put it in the title and everything. Obviously, the news about Lambert changed things, and I'll get back to the comments in a moment. Member chats, super chats go first, and you can hit the like and subscribe and all those things. That's below. However, when you look at Caitlin versus Paige, not only is this a healthy thing for the WNBA, I mean, I think it's great if the debate rages on. I am in favor of it. It's the kinds of things that are good for sports, and they play similar positions, and Paige is a hell of a basketball player. All that true, right? So I don't mind having the debate. But sometimes I think, Caitlin's not here or not playing, and people forget just what her impact is when she's actually on the floor. Because the CC and Paige thing reminds me a little bit of the dynamics of the LeBron James, Carmelo Anthony debate at one point, where people would say that because Carmelo could score from more places on the floor or had a deeper bag, that he was as good as LeBron James. When really LeBron James is and was always a lot better than Carmelo Anthony because of what his impact was on the floor. And to me, the Paige and Caitlin thing is similar, where Paige has a really well-rounded game and a mid-range bag that puts Caitlin's to shame, to be quite frank. I mean, Paige is significantly better in the mid-range than Caitlin Clark is. If Caitlin Clark had Paige Bueckers' mid-range game, she'd be basically a deity on the floor. But just because Paige is better at that one area and has that bag, if you will, well, ultimately, like, the Incredible Hulk doesn't have a bag, but he smashes. All he needs in his bag is to smash. And Caitlin, that's the thing about her, is her ability to impact the game, to me, is so much more significant than Paige's. Because not only does Caitlin get picked up 35 feet away, she also is a far superior playmaker to Paige and puts more pressure on the defense downhill than Paige. So she is a threat to make things happen 35 feet away, at the rim, and everywhere in between with her playmaking. I mean, the things that Caitlin needs to work on in her game, we've talked about the floater and the mid-range pull-up, and when the defense is forcing you into those tough situations, that is still an area where she can get better. But the impact that she has on the floor, to me, is so much more significant, especially because of the playmaking, more than anything else. You know, people talk about the logo threes and deep shots and whatever. To me, that's much secondary. I mean, that's one of the reasons teams pick her up as far up the court as they do, also to try to get the ball out of her hands, because she can pick you apart and she sees the floor. Like, Caitlin Clark's vision is as good as any basketball player I've ever seen. Male, female, whatever, NBA, WNBA, whatever. So that is the ultimate separator for me. Not to mention, I think she's much more dangerous off the bounce than Paige, getting to the rack and finishing when she's healthy. You know, last year, Caitlin Clark shot layups better than A'ja Wilson. So ultimately, that's where I see the big difference and distinction between the two. Not to mention, I think Caitlin Clark is better defensively than Paige. I think she has much more of an impact as a shot blocker and a rebounder to get out and go. You know, Caitlin can get the ball and get out and go, and then everybody's live on the floor going downhill in a fast break. So that's what, that's how I see it. So I don't think it's particularly close. I love the debate. I'll have the debate with anybody. I'm willing to hear the other side of the debate. I'm willing to hear people call me a stan or whatever. I don't care. But I don't think it's particularly close, and that's why. I think Caitlin has more impact on the floor. I think Caitlin activates her teammates more. I think Caitlin puts more pressure on the defense from further out and closer to the rim. And I honestly think Caitlin's a better defender, or at least a more impactful defender. Paige is better in the mid-range, though. Tell you, I thought you were in the members chat. Did you stop being a member and just come back? Member chats, super chats go first. So get those in. Looking through. Give CC a mid-range game would be Darth Vader-like domination. I mean, Dan, she does understand that best shots are layups and threes, but she can also get better at her mid, because some teams are going to take that away. I mean, Caitlin Clark is not infallible. Yes, I think Caitlin is a better defender. I think Caitlin's actually Caitlin's lateral movement on defense is not spectacular, but she's a very good shot blocker for a guard. She's a very, very good rebounder for a guard, if you want to count that as part of defense. And she gets steals. I think, yes, I think Caitlin is a better. I mean, there's no other way for me to put it. I think Caitlin is a better defender. Yes. Caitlin's big. Ben says, I think it's funny they always talk about CeCe's body language and complaining to refs. Paige does it just as much. No one says anything about it. Well, Caitlyn just gets more total scrutiny, attention, everything. You know, so that's why these things even pop up in the first place. In fact, I think Paige suffers in a sense from Caitlin Clark comparisons because that's why everybody's so, apt to try and elevate Sonia Citron. Not saying Citron hasn't had a good season and it's not a debate, but I think some of the Caitlin Clark fan base goes a little extra against Paige because Paige is thrust into the comparisons. Let me look at defensive rating. See if I can find the stats while we're live here. See, Caitlin might not qualify. So Caitlin Clark is currently 26th in the WNBA in defensive win shares. Where is Paige? See if I can find it real quick while I'm live here. This is tough. But I haven't seen Paige's name yet. Now, defense is also a team thing, to be fair. So you can't just take any of these stats as gospel, obviously. Where is Paige? Caitlin was 26. Paige Bueckers. Just sorting through, looking through. I can't seem to see Paige's name unless she was higher up than I thought, which I have to allow for that to be the case. 73. So in defensive win shares, Caitlin Clark is 26th and Paige Bueckers is 73rd. Just on a quick glance at the first stat I could find while I was live. Paige versus Citron, poise versus spirit, presence versus stone, pedigree versus strength. I mean, look, they're both. Citron is having a, really good year. How does looking up win shares show the standhood, J.O.V.? Looking up a statistic shows the standhood. Oh, sorry, I looked up a statistic. My bad. That makes you a stan. You're looking up a stat. You super fan. Do you see how ridiculous that sounds? In fact, questioning that makes you a hater. That's the way I would put it. I'm looking at something objective that has no possible way to be spun. I mean, you can interpret it a certain way, but the number is what the number is. Let me see if I could find another stat. Let's go to Basketball Reference. And see what we got here. Defensive rating. How about that? They only have it 1 through 20 here. Can I find the stat itself? WNBA defensive rating, Basketball Reference. All right. Let's see if we get the whole list here. No, they only have it through the top 10, so I can't see it right now. Sorry. I was trying to do that one live too. Jonquel Jones leads the league, by the way. Top 5 Angels there. Brianna Stewart, Nafisa Collier. But I would need to not be live to find these a little bit better. Regardless, I looked up the one stat and you saw what it said. Member chats, super chats go first. We got some super chats coming in. Lauren Allen, getting nervous for the Fever making the playoffs. Fever lose Friday. Aces win. They fall to 7th. Valks are playing the Sky. Fever win. Aces lose back to 5th. I would look, well, yes, the Aces are doing well, But I'd look behind the Fever more so than in front of the Fever right now as far as making the playoffs goes. The good thing for the Fever is this storm or in a free fall. So they're not catching up. The Valkyries also, they have an easy game against the Sky next, but I believe they may have the hardest schedule or one of the hardest schedules the rest of the year. Yeah, after the Chicago game, the Valkyries have Atlanta, Phoenix, Dallas, Washington, Indiana, New York, Dallas, Minnesota, Seattle, Minnesota. So the Valkyries play Minnesota twice, the Liberty, the Fever, the Mercury twice, and the Atlanta. That's 7 of their remaining games, the Valkyries. That's going to be tough for them. So I'm guessing the Valkyries fall out of this mix. The Sparks are the team to watch, I think, because they're the one rounding into form. I could see them climbing up. But if the Valkyries and the Storm fall, it doesn't matter if the Sparks climb up for the Fever. Now, the Fever and the Aces are just a game apart. The Aces have the Mercury next. So if the Fever beat the Mystics and the Aces lose to the Mercury, then all of a sudden they're tied again. Perry Stein, Paige was the kid in school who was perfect, got to 100 on her tests. Caitlin wanted to be the first female captain of Star Trek, taking us to places we've never seen before. Oh, John, thank you for the generous super chat. Sonya is a better shooter than Paige and defender. I would give the edge to Sonya right now. Defensive rating, Sonya 104, Bueckers 109. Better in win shares, 3 to 3.7. Defensive win shares, 0.5 to 1.4. And it's almost tied offensive win shares, 2.5 to 2.3. There you go. Good stats. You have the Paige versus Caitlin defensive numbers? Curious. Thank you, though. Alejandro, playmaking abilities are far superior on CC's part compared to any point guard in the league. Yeah, I mean, to any player in the league, in the history of the league. Caitlin didn't just become what Caitlin is for no reason. That's what I think sometimes people forget. And it's a little out of sight, out of mind. Like and subscribe. Got a couple more minutes here. Thank you for the member chats and super chats that have come in. Obviously makes a huge difference. Dan says CC has a defensive rating of 99.5 and Paige 104.9. Yeah, I think Paige is a better defender. I mean, Caitlin, I'm sorry. Freudian slip. You'll get me. I think Caitlin is a better defender than Paige. I really do. I don't think it's, I don't think Paige is really close to Caitlin at all. You can say whatever you want to me, whatever. That is my belief. Who is the better enforcer, Cunningham or Atkins? Referencing Atkins' ejection in the Sun Sky game yesterday. Looks, Angel likes Atkins. That's for sure. Sophie's just had a really good year, though. Indiana has the tiebreaker with the Aces. Thank you. Isn't Rookie of the Year based on how many games they win, like last year? I mean, Paige's bread and butter is the mid-range. It's okay that she's better than Caitlin at the mid-range. I think Caitlin, is just a more impactful player overall. All right, y'all. That will about do it for today's program. John. Win shares 107, Caitlin 109, Paige 1.4. Defensive win shares, Caitlin 0.5, Paige. Angel's shoes drop on 9/18. There you go. Spider-Man. I think Spider-Man is objectively the best superhero. He's relatable. His action looks cool. His suit looks cool. He's not overpowered. I think, objectively speaking, personal favorites aside, I would say Spider-Man is the best superhero. All right, likes, subscribes, get them in. Appreciate you guys as always. Let me know when you want to do the next member chat, and all that, because we will do one. I appreciate. Batman's too dark and brooding to me, and he's just like, a billionaire with a CrossFit membership. But there you go. Magneto is a great villain. I appreciate that, Carol. Iron Man moved up the rankings with the movies. That's for sure. 1,000% moved up the rankings with the movies. All right, y'all. That'll do it for me. I do believe Caitlin is a better defender. Yes, I really believe that. Tell me why she isn't. Real quick. Oh, wait. Before I sign off, tell me why she isn't. I told you why I think she is. Waiting. What does she do better defensively? That's it. All right. Until the next one. Oh, Bale's Batman is greater than Holland's Superman. I don't know. I disagree. Spider-Man, I disagree. I just like Spider-Man better than Batman. Till the next one.